I'm gonna tell y'all the secret to making soulful samples from scratch in the style of Kendrick Lamar, Kanye West, and J. Cole. So let's go over some of the rules that you would need for these soul samples. Now, disclaimer, these aren't necessarily rules that you need to follow, but if you don't know where to start, this is a great guideline. Number one, choose more realistic instruments. Things like pianos, guitars, glockenspiels, strings, vocals, brass, and electric basses. Now you could also use synths, but I personally found it easier to use the instruments that I previously stated. It just helps get the sound way better. Number two, complex chords are gonna be your best friend. And if you don't know how to make complex chords, I'll show y'all a little trick to make that happen. And number three is layering. Sometimes the best loops aren't the ones with the most crazy counter melodies and have a whole bunch of things going on. Sometimes they're just simple, smooth chord progressions that have really good layers. Number four is to add drums and ambiance. You have to remember that when people were making these songs back in the day, they had the drums going crazy, they had little sounds here and there and everything like that. So to really elevate the vibe and make it sound more realistic, doing that is really gonna help. And number five is sample manipulation. So when you're done making the loop, it's always good to bounce it out, stretch it, speed it up, slow it down, pitch it up, pitch it down, just do a whole bunch of little things to it. So let me walk y'all through the exact process I went through to make this loop right here. All right, so remember rule number two, complex chords are your best friends. If you don't know how to make them, this right here, ripcord, will definitely help you out. So when I first started making this loop, I was just kind of going through the chords. You know what I mean? Just doing things like that until I got something that I liked. And then once I found something that I liked, what I did was right click right here, hit burn to MIDI, and then I put it into the current pattern. And then I copied it and pasted it into a piano. And the piano that I use for this loop right here is the Noir felt piano. So here's a couple things that I did to the chord progression. I created this little space right here because space is super, super underrated when it comes to making loops. I created this extra chord right here just because I wanted to create more movement. And then just kind of spice it up at the end, I put this little run right here, you know what I mean? And here's what the piano sounds like by itself. And then after that, I went into the Voices of Soul and I put down these chords right here. And after that, I moved on to the strings, and usually with the strings, I just take the top line of the chord progression. So for instance, the D sharp, all these things right here are like, you know what I mean? Like the top notes of the chord progression. And I just kind of made something up with that right there, using those as a guideline. Oh, and here is the preset that I used for that right there. Now at this point, I felt like I had a really good foundation for the loop, so I wanted to add in a little ear candy and layers. So I got a glockenspiel and expand, and I put down this little run right here. Now, glockenspiels aren't usually like the main sound that you're gonna be using to build your chord progressions and everything like that, but in my personal opinion, it's a great accent sound. Then I got an electric bass, and don't you ever forget the electric bass. And as you can see, it does have a good amount of movement in it. And just remember, when it comes to these melodies, more movement equals more sauce. And then this right here is just a layer. It is a guitar in Opus. Again, as you can see, I use Opus a lot. Like it's a cheat code for these type of loops and everything like that. And I just copied over the original chord progression in here. This is what it sounds like. As you can see, it's not that loud. I really wanted it to be in the background and just create more body and make everything a little bit more full. And the same thing goes for the brass as well. And then to finish off all the sounds, I put in this little drum loop right here. Now let's get on to the sample manipulation. Whenever I get to a point where I feel like the loop is sounding good, I'll bring it down to a slower BPM, something like 58, 60, 64, something like that. And then I'll export it. And then I'll stretch it and I'll speed it back up to the BPM that I wanted it at. And then this is what the loop ended up sounding like all together. But then I wanted to give it more of that Kanye type of feel, so I took it and I pitched it up 500 cents, and it ended up sounding like this. All right, so I appreciate y'all for watching the video. This is actually my second time recording this because my camera wanted to be a punk, bruh. So with that being said, drop a like on the video, hit us up if you want to sub, comment if you want to comment, and peace out.